Good morning. It's 9 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the October 4th, 2022 City Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Garza.
Here.
Fast.
Here.
Bagwell.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's prayer will be given by Pastor David Dubovich. Thank you.
Let's pray. Holy One, known by many names and beyond all names, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of community, Spirit of justice. We ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. And remind them and us that no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, and that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, those who are forgotten. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out and listen. May they and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Amen. Next item, please.
Item 4, oral communications from the audience.
Okay, this is the part of the meeting where those in the audience are welcome to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. We ask that you approach the podium, state your name and zip code, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, please call the next item.
Item 5, consent agenda.
Are there comments or is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 6A, public hearing to consider several projects funded by the State Revolving Loan Fund Program.
Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing. Second.
Please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Brian Clinton. I'm the Director of Public Works. Also like to introduce Jacob Coy, our Assistant Director of Public Works, and he is going to be passing around a sign-in sheet. This is a public hearing, and we need to document who all was in attendance as part of our application for our loan. So city staff is planning to submit 2 state revolving fund loan applications, one for the water side and one for the wastewater side. And the reasons for going through this process, the SRF loan, is that the interest rate on a 20-year loan is 60% of that of the market rate. So right now it's approximately 2%. The other reason is our water line project qualifies for partial principal forgiveness if there's money left. So all the projects are ranked, and depending on how much funding that they have, not 100% sure that we will get that, but we are eligible for some principal loan forgiveness. With that, I'd like to start by talking about our wastewater application first. And the wastewater application is going to be for the rehabilitation of 5 lift stations and also improvements to our grit removal system, which is housed in our headworks facility. So in 2018, the city completed a wastewater treatment facility planning study. This study developed an alternative scoring matrix to help us prioritize projects based on several key factors. Those key factors were, 1, consequence of failure. So we gave that a rating of 60%, or a weight of 60%. And basically, the consequence of failure is what would happen if this piece of equipment failed or this process failed, and would it impact our ability to meet our permitting requirements? The second key factor was economics, and that got a weight of 30%. So that looked at the total cost of the project. So the higher that project cost, the lower it scored, and the more that project saved in operation and maintenance costs, the higher that project scored. And then the final factor was safety, which got a weight of 10%. Safety for the environment, safety for our staff were the factors considered within that one. So based on those factors, we developed a list of priority projects, and they're shown here in this particular table. Just like to point out a few of those projects. So we have completed several of these projects that were in the facility planning study. The secondary treatment project, the biosolids, and the UV disinfection project have all been complete. Those were ranked 1, 2, and 4. So we've invested roughly $4.5 million in those particular projects. The third ranked project is the biosolids project, and that is for the purchase of some additional farm ground to give us more land to apply biosolids to. And we're currently in discussions with one of our local property owners on the purchase of some additional farm ground. The fifth ranked project, which is this power factor correction, after we completed projects 1, 2, and 4, we had enough energy savings that project was no longer needed. So we were able to eliminate the power factor correction project. The first and grand automatic transfer switch, that's the automatic transfer switch for our generator, so that when we lose power at that particular lift station, it automatically switches to the generator. That project will be complete in the month of November of this year. That leads us to projects 7 through 12, which are the projects that we're here to talk about today. So that is our 5 lift station projects, plus the improvements at the headworks facility, and they're estimated to cost about $3.6 million. So the city owns and operates 33 lift stations within the collection system, and so ideally, wastewater would flow by gravity. But Hutchinson is so flat, we're not able to do that. So we flow by gravity for a little ways, and then we have a pump station that lifts that wastewater up so that it can flow by gravity just a little bit further. We have updated or rehabbed 28 of those lift stations in our system to date. That means we've got 5 left in our system.
Hey, Brian, do we just do that through our CIP or through the general fund typically? Is that how we do that?
Yeah, so these projects are included in our CIP, and then they're paid for out of our sewer rates.
Okay, so if we were to obtain this funding, we wouldn't necessarily have to, well, I guess we'd still have to
Pay off the loan.
pay it off through CIP.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all of these projects are in our CIP, so a lot of this is probably going to look a little bit familiar to you because of the budget discussions, but yeah.
Thank you.
So we have 5 lift stations remaining. Failure of a lift station could result in significant backups to our residents or our businesses. So these lift stations are really critical pieces of infrastructure for our community to function properly. First lift station I'd like to talk about is located at 19th Terrace. It was built in 1987, and its design is to pump 200 gallons per minute. Just to orient everybody on this map, the north is up. Those green lines are existing sanitary sewers, and the red lines are the proposed improvements. So those proposed improvements consist of new submersible pumps, a new valve vault, new controls, a new fence, and the rehab of the existing wet well.
And Brian, can you inform us on what the typical lifespan is? Is it typically 40 years for a lift station? or-
Yeah, that's probably pushing it. So mechanical equipment is really in the range of 20 years. And that's what we're anticipating out of these particular rehabs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The next lift station is located at 7th and Porter. Again, it was built in 1987. Design life, or the design pumpage is 200 gallons per minute. So very similar improvements to that at 19th Terrace, but we also plan to address a couple of other issues that we have at this particular lift station. One, it's very difficult to bypass this lift station when we need to take it out of service. So we are going to install a bypass connection in that existing sanitary sewer. We also see a lot of fats, oils, and grease at this particular lift station, so a buildup of that scum. So we will be evaluating equipment that can eliminate or help disperse those buildups. Next lift station is the Industrial Park lift station. It's located at 11th and GVI. Again, built in 1987, 250 gallons per minute is its design capacity. Very similar again to the 19th Terrace improvements, but there are a couple site-specific issues. One is flooding. This lift station is in a hole based on some of the newer development that's been built up around it, so we need to address the drainage at this particular site. We also see rags, an issue with rags at this particular lift station, so we plan to install pumps with deragging capabilities.
Which way is the output on this one? Is it going south?
Yeah, yep. Next lift station is what we call the Regency Park lift station. It was built in 2004, and design capacity at the time was 250 gallons per minute. The biggest issue with this lift station is it's not sized adequately. So oftentimes both pumps are having to pump. It's got two pumps in there. And ideally, a lift station size so that one pump can handle the flow, and then those pumps alternate. And that means that if one of those pumps needs to be taken out of service for maintenance, we still have the ability to pump and not back sewage up into a home. So we are looking at increasing the size of both the wet well and the pump capacity at this particular site. And then the final lift station is the Shears lift station. It was built in 1977. It pumps 1,250 gallons per minute. So this is the second largest lift station in the city. It pumps about 30% of the total wastewater to the wastewater treatment plant. And one of the big issues on this particular lift station is that maintenance staff has to go down the dry well, which is about 30 feet deep, every 2 weeks to do some maintenance of the pumps. The proposed improvements are going to eliminate that dry well space, which is also considered a confined space. So definitely improving the safety for our operations staff with the improvements at this particular lift station. Okay, so that's the lift stations. Any questions about those lift stations before I move on to the headworks?
How do you shut those down to do the work? I mean, how long will we be without that lift station? I assume they all have bypasses except for the one you mentioned?
Right, so we will have to bypass the sewage around. And so that one that I mentioned that didn't have the bypass, there is a manhole. It's just a little further away, so it would be some temporary piping that we would be routing around that particular lift station. And we anticipate these, trying to think of what that construction schedule looks like. I want to say it's around 6 to 9 months of construction. I'm not sure that at all that time those lift stations will be out of service. They'll be able to maintain service. So I don't know exactly how long we'll be without these lift stations during the construction project.
That particular lift station has an elevator and it's still got the elevator?
It does have an elevator to
I
get down
remember
there.
those days, yeah.
Yeah, you've been down in there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the elevator was fun. We're having submersible pumps instead of top.
That's
pumps.
right. All of these are gonna go to submersible pumps.
No, the ones you have 2 pumps on, are we gonna have 2 submersible pumps, or the pump is gonna be big enough to handle it?
No, we'll have 2 submersible pumps in
Okay.
all of these. Yep, again, to have that redundancy. All right, I'll move on to the Headworks Improvement Project. So this is a picture of our Headworks building right here. That building houses our grit collection system. That grit collection system was installed in 1985, and it's experiencing heavy corrosion, which could lead to decreased efficiency and potentially failure of that system. And a failure of our grit collection system would lead to grit buildup in our downstream processes, which would lead to additional wear and tear on pumps and other systems downstream of that facility. Also, we could see additional grit buildup in our aeration basins, which would impact our ability to treat ammonia and organics, which could lead to a permit violation. All right, so I think this is a cool process, so I just kind of want to walk everybody through this. This is a section of that building, so just picture taking a knife and chopping that building in half. The aerated grit chamber is right here, and so that is where all the wastewater is flowing into this chamber. And so we've got a bunch of diffusers here that are releasing air bubbles that help settle that grit out. That grit settles down into a little chamber right here where we have a grit auger. That grit auger moves that grit over here to our grit pump. That grit pump pumps the grit up into our cyclone. The cyclone spins and further separates the grit and creates this grit slurry, which is dumped into our classifier. The classifier further separates out the grit from the organic material, and then that grit is eventually dumped into a trash bin. That trash is then hauled away to the landfill. And this is just some pictures of that equipment that's going to be replaced. We've got right here is our grit pump, and this is just the outside of the screw or the auger, and then this is our cyclone and classifier, and you can see some of the heavy corrosion that we're experiencing on that equipment.
Brian, is all this equipment available? I know that we're having some issues with contractors on availability for parts and
Yeah.
stuff gets behind.
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that yet. So a little bit later, we're going to be hiring an engineering firm and a contractor to begin the process of designing this. And we'll know a lot more when we start working directly with that contractor and they start reaching out to these equipment suppliers. Okay, any questions about the grit removal system at the Headworks facility or the lift stations before we move on to our water project?
Are these systems sized for our current, when they were sized and installed in the late 70s and 80s, was it installed with the idea that we would have a certain amount of capacity needs in the future? Are we going to keep those same capacity needs?
We are, yeah. Our lift station, or our wastewater treatment plant is designed to handle 8.3 million gallons a day. And that's just normal average daily flow. And our average daily flow is anywhere from 4 to 5 million gallons a day. So we're sized well for what we're seeing, which means that we've got the ability to grow and send more wastewater to that facility. Okay, we'll move on to the water side. Okay, so
Bless you.
the water project is a water replacement project. And the city used the American Water Works Association Build No Longer pipe replacement modeling tool to determine how much water line we need to be replacing every year. And in 2023, that model says that we need to be replacing about 3.3 miles of water line. However, we're going to only replace 1.3 miles in 2023, and that's just purely due to the amount of revenue that we've got available. That's the amount that we can afford at this point in time. Future planned replacements, based on the rate increases that we've discussed about during the budgeting process. In 24, we're looking at replacing 1.5 miles. In 25, 2.25 miles. In 26, 2.25 miles. And in 2027, 2.7 miles of water line. So this model also helped us focus in on the pipe age, the pipe material, and the pipe sizes that were most likely to fail. And I'd like to walk through this chart with you. So just focus in on this decade, the 1900 to 1909 decade. And the little shaded area, that is the linear feet that were installed that are still in service today. So you can see that 5% of our system is made up of water lines that were installed from 1900 to 1909. That bar shows the percent of water main breaks that the pipes that were built within that decade are responsible for. So about 8% of all of our water main breaks occur on pipes that were built between 1900 and 1909. So look here at the 1950s and the 1960s. So 28% of our water lines were built in the 50s and the 60s, but 47% of our water line breaks happen on pipe that's built in that particular period. So,
Different materials, or?
yeah, and so what I've heard is all of the good steel went to build tanks in the
makes
40s. And so the cast iron pipes that went to the water line were not as high quality. So the next is the material of water line versus water line breaks. Again, we've got different material that make up our water system, but the largest amount of our system is made up of cast iron pipes. So 62% of our system is made up of cast iron pipes. That accounts for about 94% of our main breaks, that particular material does. And then if you look at the size, again, 6-inch pipes stick out like a sore thumb. So 38% of our system is made up of pipes that are 6 inches in size, but they make up about 80% of our water main breaks. So with that information in mind and a review of water main breaks that are occurring out there, we focused in on an area between K61 and Town Street and First Avenue and 9th Avenue. All these pipes were installed between 1948 and 1968. They're all cast iron and they're all 6 inches in diameter. And they also have a significant history of main breaks. So that's where our 1.3 miles of water line replacement is going to be focused in 2023. And any questions about the water line project?
Approximately how many miles of water line do we have in total?
About 310 miles.
So we're replacing about a third of 1% a year.
Right. And our goal is to get it to close to about 1% a year is our goal. And as we approach the end of our next rate period, we're getting close. We're about 2.75 miles of water line replacement is what we've got budgeted right now.
So Brian, absent this award, we just fund it per usual debt?
That's right.
Okay. And when it's a revolving loan, so our award's made every 2 months, or when would we know?
Yearly.
Yearly, okay.
Yeah, so our application is due in mid-October, and then we would know early next year about our award.
What department makes that decision?
Kansas Department of Health and Environment
Okay.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see that the loan application asks if there are other funding sources like cash on hand, CDBG, and rural development grants. Do we typically, do do we qualify for any one of those funding sources, other than cash on hand?
Right, yeah. I don't know. I've not pursued any of those other funding sources.
Well, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask questions about this project? And Brian, did you inform Jacob about the speech he gives when he's introduced?
You're catching him cold.
I'm just kidding. Welcome to the city. How long have you been here?
About 2 months.
2 months. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Nice to
Brian,
finally
have
meet you.
How comfortable are you with writing these grants? You know, are we receiving most of the grants we ask for? Seems like there's a lot of money, state money, federal money. I just want to be sure that we're okay with how we're doing it. You know, I wonder if we should consider a grant writer on staff or how that works.
Right. And this one, I'm comfortable filling this one out. It's fairly self-explanatory. We did get some assistance. We were required to have a preliminary engineering report, and so we did get some assistance from a consultant on the engineering report. So the facility planning study document is really that supporting document to justify our loan application. And then on the water side, we're using JEO to help supplement some of the preliminary engineering report to help justify the need for the grant application, or the loan application. And it is a loan application, not necessarily a grant.
And
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but it's, you know, it's money we don't have
That's
to
right.
pay on a higher interest rate. So,
Exactly.
you know, all of this stuff's important for the city, so.
Yeah. Now, there are some, stipulations that go with these grants. The Buy American is an issue, and we'll be working through with our consultant on the design aspect of those to make sure that it doesn't hinder the project in any way. But
I do know, I was talking with the contractor yesterday, and you can get special permission from the state to go away from Made in America if there's nothing available.
Right.
So anyway, fascinating to learn all about this. Thanks.
yeah.
Are there further comments or questions, or a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Okay, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7A, consider a resolution authorizing staff to submit state revolving loan fund applications.
Okay, so this is basically one of the requirements for completing the state revolving loan fund. It's basically a resolution authorizing the application by the governing body. And so we've got two resolutions, one for the wastewater side and one for the water side.
Okay, is there a motion on the first resolution?
I'll make the motion to approve a resolution authorizing the completion of an application to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment regarding a loan from the Kansas Public Water Supply Loan Fund, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second that. Sorry.
Are we doing them both at the same
Are we
time?
doing both at the same time or separate?
Let's do them separately. I don't know why they're written that way. Okay.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes, and is there a motion on the resolution for Kansas Water Pollution Control Revolving Fund?
I'll make the motion to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for a loan under the Kansas Water Pollution Control Revolving Fund Act, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8A. Wait a minute, sorry. Item 8A, consider lift station rehabilitation preliminary design agreement.
All right, good morning again. So requests for qualifications were sent out to 5 engineering firms. Burns & McDonnell was the only firm to submit a qualification statement for this project. Their submittal was very thorough, and they have successfully completed several projects out at the wastewater treatment facility. Therefore, we decided to move forward with negotiating a scope and fee on this particular project with them. As far as the schedule goes, city staff is interested in pursuing a design-build project delivery method to help shorten the time frame of construction for this particular project, and also to provide some cost certainty and scheduling certainty by working directly with that contractor and the designer at the same time. And also early in the project, rather than waiting for the project to be completely designed before getting that contractor involved. So the project's broken out into 2 phases. So the first phase is a preliminary design and a guaranteed maximum price development, which will be complete in February of 2023. After that, if we decide to go with the design build route, and we'll have a jumping off point at that point. So we could either go one of 2 ways. Design build, we would have the project complete by March of 2024. And if we go the more traditional design bid build, the project would be complete by September of 2024. From a financial standpoint, the proposed agreement with Burns & McDonnell for this first phase is for a lump sum contract of $136,974. After phase 1 is completed, we will be bringing back a contract for phase 2 to the City Council for your review and approval. And with that, we're recommending that the council authorize the mayor to sign the attached agreement.
Okay, is there any discussion on this item?
So this is just for phase 1 for the design.
Yes.
And in phase 2, we'll decide if we're doing design bid, or design bid build, or design build.
Yes.
And we'll have some qualifications on how we're vetting potential contractors.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they've got a team together, so CAS and Burns & McDonnell have teamed up, and that is who they're going to propose for a design build.
And the CAS do some of the work on the last go-around on the wastewater.
They've done all of our wastewater treatment plant work with Burns & McDonnell, and they've done a very good job for us.
So this is just for phase 1. I would move to approve the proposed preliminary agreement with Burns & McDonnell for the sanitary sewer lift stations rehabilitation 2022 project and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8B, consider approval of final plat for the Gelmer's addition.
Thank you, Brian.
Good morning, Council. Jim Seitnader, Interim Director of Planning and Development. I'm here this morning to ask your approval for case number SDF 22-00005. And it is for the Gelmer's addition, which is on a very busy corner on the northwest corner of 17th and Lorraine. Matt Williams, AICP for Professional Engineering Services, approved the preliminary and final plat of the Gelmer's replat for compliance with all Reno County and City of Hutchinson subdivision plating requirements. On Tuesday, September 27th, the Planning Commission gave their unanimous approval of both the plats and recommends to you that you approve the final plat. There's a picture of the RCB Bank on that corner. And the zoning map, it is zoned C4 Special Commercial. And an aerial view of the property, which is about 1.99 acres. And the future land use keeps it at the same use that it is currently being used for. And there's a picture of the property again, and their neighbor to the north, which is a credit union, and across the street is the nice little shopping center with the Metropolitan, although it's awfully dark in the picture there. And Trinity High School is directly to the east of the project, or the property, and then Coles to the west. And again, the planning Department, PEC, and the Planning Commission all request your approval of this plat.
Why do things like this come before you? What, are they wanting to divide their parcel up and sell off part of it? Is that?
Yeah, well, we don't know the intent of the use, but we know they wanted to subdivide the parcel, so.
Okay.
And that's something that's not handled administratively.
No, it's too big
Okay.
to handle. So
Yeah.
that's where we need Matt's assistance. And we are working on smaller areas to where we can do less of this type of replatting because we think that's important. A lot of cases you've heard with people that own 2 lots building a house, for instance, and they want to center the house or whatever. So Matt believes in his research of the statutes and things like that, that we should consider that as a single lot until the time they might want to do something different or a next owner might want to do something different. So
Great, and that was totally not a comment on your department, really just a matter of how we could, kind of streamline the process for applicants. I'd be in favor of that.
yeah, well, we're real excited with working with PEC on best practices and ways that we can do that exact same thing
Okay,
Are we able to
fantastic.
do a lot split administratively on smaller lots?
on smaller lots.
What's the threshold?
You would ask me that.
I'm sorry,
Ballpark.
but, you know,
Again, I think it's more tied to the usage and things like that, where this is more than likely going to be another commercial property. A landowner with a residence of 2 lots is doing that more as part of the build process. So that's the best answer I can give.
take
But
it.
that's why we go to MAT and to PEC, so they can guide us on what is the proper function.
Now you've piqued our curiosity, Jim. I guess it doesn't matter. We'll prove it anyway, but.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it is a small building.
Yeah.
So
Are there thoughts on the recommendation of the Planning Commission on this plat? Or a motion? Or anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the project and tell us what it's going to be? I didn't think so.
Well, then I would move to accept and approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the final plat for Gelmer's Addition replat and authorize the mayor to sign the official document.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Item 9, report of city officials.
All right, let's start with you, Greg.
I have nothing today.
Okay. What about you, Steve?
Okay, yes, I like to, the Rod Run was a success. I went out there and see it, seen a lot of citizens coming out and see. I think it was a great thing. Real quick on the student council, the last day is we're gonna collect all the applications on October 6th from all the schools and the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll meet, and on October 22nd will be the big day for the voting. All the kids will come to the Fine Arts Building at the college and sit and listen to the candidates like us, and hopefully they'll get an experience, and hopefully it's the start of a new council members pretty soon. So other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. What do you have, John?
I enjoyed the weekend at the car show. That was a good time. I know that, I don't know Mr. Pope that well, but I know he was honored this weekend for, I think it was 52 years of service to
I think it was
NAACP here
54.
in town.
Yeah.
And that's incredible community service, and I think it should be noted. And I think the Kiwanis Chili Cook-Off is coming up in early November, and I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, that'll be a fun event.
That'll be a good time.
Got a lot of great things going on this fall. All right, what do you have, Sarah?
I actually had a question from a constituent about the alley behind 11th South Main, and the reason why he's wanting an explanation why the alley can't be fixed, because it's more of like gravel and it's not a dirt alley, but he says there's a lot of issues going on with it. And he said, in short, because I guess he talked to Brian Clinton, and he said, in short, because it's concrete, brick, and asphalt, that the city won't fix it. I don't know if that's true or not.
Brian, do you have any, any framework for what this issue is, or?
And so that is the alley behind 11th South Main.
11 South Main?
By the tire store.
Oh, yes, Brian Davis.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, so that is a paved alley. Okay. And so paved alleys, we will maintain the alleys. So we just went in and patched the potholes in that alley just here within the last week or so. Actually met with Brian,
Okay.
my street supervisor, myself, and Brian all met. And we talked through these issues. And so if he wants a nice, new, smooth alley, then that is a benefit district project where the
Okay.
property owners need to pay to reconstruct that particular alley. But
Okay.
if we want to just do repairs, it's not going to be smooth and brand new, but the city is responsible for the maintenance to fix potholes that show up in that particular alley. So
Okay.
anyway, and the last conversations we'd had with Brian, we
Okay.
felt like this issue had been
Okay,
resolved.
it's been resolved.
Yeah.
All right, and then I have another question. Not from you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Can I get an update on when the public hearing for the chickens is gonna be? The chicken issue? So that the,
Yes, we had a continuing conversation 2 meetings ago with the Planning Commission. So I'll be putting a report out based on the information and try to get the group towards a consensus. But I think we're really close now on, from that meeting, where the points of agreement are and that type of thing. So
okay, will there be a public meeting held soon, or when do you think the timeline? will be?
well, our plan was to include that as part of our overall, we do once or twice a year where we do a lot of what they call text amendments, where we try to fix a number of different issues that we're working on. Solar panels are one, and so that was the plan anyway, was to try to include that as overall. One of the things we learned is there's a disconnect between planning, being able to request people or tell people, what they can have, and then the actual enforcement piece. So that's one of the things that we'll have to try to tie together is some of that. But I think the consensus pretty much from the Planning Commission is we do believe, or they believe, that more chickens should be allowable, but we also have to tighten up on the people that don't take care of them and do harm to their neighbors. So the kind of the yin and yang of,
Balancing
where
public
that
interest.
balances. So
Yeah.
Okay.
that's, we got great help from Michaela Schomer from the animal control, and she really brought some really good light. And so I think that's helped get that consensus to there. And I shouldn't probably speak for the planning commissioners, but that's my read anyway.
Do you anticipate bringing those text amendments in November or December?
Was our goal, our
Okay.
plan. We've got a lot of things, as I said earlier, with our relationship with PEC, we start to see things from a different lens, and I think that'll be very beneficial. So instead of dealing with things kind of one case at a time, we're looking for ways to fix the problem so that it doesn't keep coming back in a different form or a different location. So
Thank
that's
you.
our goal.
Yeah,
Thank you
fantastic.
for the update. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks for staying on top of that. I had 2 items that I spoke with the city manager about in the last few days, and I was hoping we could get an update on the 11th Street project. I really appreciate Jeff's responsiveness to constituents who have had complaints about that. Wondered what the kind of what the status is on that project, and then also an update on the atrium. I know we have some people who are following following what we're doing there, so.
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Good morning, Gary Meager, interim city manager. With regard to the 11th Street project, there was a public hearing that was held yesterday, and there were probably about a dozen of the residents in the area that attended that to get an update from the contractor. There were a lot of things that caused delays on that project. You may recall the water line situation, and our public works crews stepped in and got that done as quickly as they could. That was something that we were having to wait on a contractor, so we were able to expedite that, but the overall project's about a month behind. There were a couple other things that occurred too, but where they are right now is the contractor is doing the pours this week, should have them done by Friday or perhaps on Monday. Once those pours are done, then it usually is 7 days before we can allow traffic onto that surface. However, they're doing what they call cylinders, breaking cylinders, to determine if they can reach a certain tensile strength to allow traffic on early. And if that's the case, we'll try to get the traffic opened up to that project earlier than the 7 days. The third phase of that project probably starting later this month, and then there's a fourth phase that will start probably in November or so, depending on weather and things like that. So it's moving along. We certainly appreciate the patience of the people in that area. And I know Councilmember Fast was there at the meeting, so as far as the atrium, both Izzy Rivera, a building inspector, and myself have been in contact with Joshua Joseph with regard to the atrium. Right now, he did offer the building to the city. There's been some prior discussions. I know in this particular offer, he was offering to sell the building to the to the city for $2 million, and then he would demolish it if that's what we wanted or whatever it might be. So he did offer it for sale, but that's the latest we know on it.
Okay. I'd be interested in hearing council's feedback. It would be my hope that we do not give him a damn dime for that building, but I don't know how everyone else feels.
So let me get this straight.
Maybe not that strong.
Let me get this straight. He wants us to buy it for $2 million, and we demolish it, or he demolishes it?
He indicated he has a crew, a construction crew or construction people that could demolition the building.
Well, I agree with you. We don't give them blank dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Jade had a slip there.
Any other thoughts on the council's appetite for acquiring that building to be demolished?
Well, I mean, I think we need to do something about it. I mean, I would think that I don't think we should totally ignore the option, honestly, at $2 million if he does all of the work to clear it. That property at that location is worth a decent amount of money. And we would be getting rid of an eyesore. So I wouldn't necessarily count it out personally. But maybe, $1 million, $1.5 million. I don't know if we have the funds for it because of other projects, but to get an eyesore out, and I'm sure we could sell the property to somebody.
I think the thing I take most issue with is that it is ultimately privately owned and his responsibility to maintain it to a certain standard.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other properties. We're not paying the landmark owner $2 million to, repair that property, which is on our major corridor, another major corridor, and arguably in worse condition. So I just think it sets a terrible precedent for
I would like
fixing problems of private business owners.
Maybe there's a way to get two people together and not necessarily be in the funding, but maybe the Chamber of Commerce or somebody can work with Joseph to see if there is anybody else that would be interested in the property. And maybe going that route would probably be the more reasonable route.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to do something with that, to get that land just flattened and,
It's a really good marketable location.
yes, that's what I'm saying.
It's a very good
And
property
having a good
location.
marketable location like that in our town, just sitting idle with a dilapidated building, it hurts, right?
I just don't know if
So-
it's the taxpayer's responsibility
Yeah.
to remedy it. But it
If
is
we had a zero
impacting.
cost to the taxpayer
Yeah.
solution to the problem, I would ask that the city manager tries to find some solution.
I think our best bet would be if another developer was interested enough in the property for a
Yeah.
project to handle the acquisition and demolition. And we have had people interested in that location, but that initial cost is just so high to get to a
Yeah.
point where you can just start building that.
Yeah.
I mean, hope springs eternal, and I think we should continue exploring that option. I
If
just,
he could get it leveled and the land cleared to where it was just a commercial lot, we could get to there with him, that,
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
well, I know that residents in that area have been really concerned about activity, and I know that, I think Chief Hooper, you're having your officers patrol that area a little more closely, but I don't know if you have anything new to report on whether or not you've been successful in preventing additional acts of
Mayor, I don't really have anything additional other than what I gave you at the last city council meeting. I mean, that we're called up there quite frequently and we handle those as we need to, but as far as being a hazard to the community or to our officers there, it hasn't really been such, but it does sap our manpower when we have to go up there for particular calls.
It's a nuisance. But, okay, thank you.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be for purchasing it from him and then expecting him to follow through with work.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, the work would have to be done first, right? That's what, like, is there any way, or does
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair,
Yeah.
you don't get your money till, but this is not a taxpayer issue. It's become
Yeah.
one because we want what's best for our city, and
Yeah.
certainly the atrium right now is not what's best for our city.
Well, and we are admittedly expending taxpayer dollars on monitoring it. But $2 million is just a lot to swallow when there are so many other projects I could think of for a community that would lift it up in better ways.
Would we as a group support him or anyone that were to purchase a property in obtaining a grant for blighted property demolition?
Is there grants for that?
Well, the CDBG, there's a grant for blighted properties. We'd have to declare it blight, I believe.
Paul, you can speak to this, but I think one of the issues is that it really doesn't meet the definition of a property that should be on our demo list. It's
Well,
ugly, but it's
kind of
structurally
it's kind of subjective
sound.
on the term blighted property, because I can tell you, I've seen examples where a governing body, not necessarily here, they declare it a blighted property for that purpose, so that you can apply for grants. With the atrium, quite frankly, we haven't reached a point where it meets our demolition standards.
Yeah.
It's in better condition than that currently. So it doesn't necessarily help with that. But yes, there's an ability to declare properties blighted and to attempt to get that funding.
If we declared it blighted, would the property owner be responsible for the demolition costs, or would we be responsible and then
Well, I think
put it back on property taxes?
the example was that you're looking to apply for a grant for those purposes. I keep thinking of the old hospital and the current process going on there, and I think that's maybe what you are referring to. And yes, it can be approached in that manner, and I believe the funding comes from the state.
I think you would just have to find the correct grant that might be available, CDBG probably wouldn't apply because that's really for low to moderate income, that would benefit low to moderate income populations. There are some, like with the hospital, but that's more of a Brownsfield to take care of environmental. So if you could find that right grant, and we could certainly look around to see what is available, we could certainly try to see if there's something would pair up with that.
Well, I think we should have the attitude that no matter who the party is, if someone's willing to demo the building, that we would, within our capabilities, help them apply and get grants to do it.
Yeah.
Amen. As long as it's not costing us $2 million to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll certainly try to explore that and see what might be available.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. The only other item I had was, I've had a few people reach out about the Orchard Park on 30th and some vandalism that's occurred there. I know we've got the park patrol, and Chief, I hate to put you on the spot again, but I'm going to do it. Can you talk a little bit about how many officers we have on park patrol and kind of what their what their rotation is and what we're doing to try to prevent some of this? It's really disappointing. We've got these beautiful parks and so much vandalism.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mayor. We have 12 police service aides that are assigned to that, and they will rotate, and we try to have in the summertime about 8 hours worth of park patrol on weekends and about 4 hours worth of park patrol on weeknights. One of the problems with that particular program is a lot of our PSAs are college students in the criminal justice program, and so we lost some over the summer, so we were short staff there, but we were able to fill all our weekend hours and most of our weekday hours with that particular park patrol. And while that's one of our focuses, but so is Cary Park and Rice Park and things like that. And so it's good that we have that park patrol, and I know that we have probably helped with some of the situation there and solved some of the issues, but it's kind of a shot in the barrel. I mean, the chances of them being there at the particular time, and with Orchard Park, it's a pretty open park. You can see when headlights of a vehicle pull into that park early on, and so, even when we send unmarked cars up there, chances of catching somebody doing vandalism with that and we average about, I don't have the stats in front of me, but we average about 25 to 30 hours worth of park patrol in a month. But maybe 5 or 6 of those hours are actually up at Orchard Park, and then there's travel time. And if you recall, that park patrol is also responsible for the zoo security, so they do the checks and things like that at night. So we haven't caught anybody up there committing vandalism, but we've also had vandalism down in Cary Park and some other things like that as well. So I think that park patrol is valuable, and you never know what you don't know or what they prevented, what could have happened had they not been there. Could the problem even have been worse? But to think that would be the sole source of solving our issues up at Orchard Park, would be unrealistic.
I'm wondering if we were to start aggregating the cost of the damages, if it would justify like a wide-ranging surveillance system. And I don't know if I think Todd has spoken to this before, but is it just so cost prohibitive to put in video surveillance in our parks?
And I don't know, Todd would have to speak to that, and we've talked about the cameras before. I know one of the issues up there was some line of sight, and Todd certainly could speak to that, but one of the things that if we were able to put video surveillance up there, our command post at the police department is manned most of the time, and we could pipe that video right into that command post, and we would be able to watch the activity up there, especially during peak hours, and then send resources if we saw people up there. I think that would be a possible help or a possible solution.
Yeah. Well, for that particular park, you've got the water tower adjacent, which is where wireless equipment could be placed for that purpose. I mean, I know we have other parks, but I know that would be a very expensive solution, but I wonder if that's something we shouldn't start exploring. I know a lot of communities have gone to that. Again, anybody have any clue? Gary, I don't know if your staff has done any kind of research on this, but how much that would cost to put in surveillance?
We could
Todd's watching.
I know that one of the
from next
business
door.
owners near Avenue A Park has or is putting up a camera, but it's not like what you would probably want. But it was about $300 for one camera because of some issues going on next to that building. And that's, he's just trying to catch somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can add your park patrol to Avenue A Park, but, and
Yeah, one of the things when you look at cameras rarely stop the activity before it happens, but they
Yeah.
would allow us hopefully the opportunity to figure out who's doing it and take action against them, and that may in the long term curb the activity if it's the same people up there on a frequent basis. Yeah.
Well, and over time, it could be a deterrent as people become trained with the knowledge that they're
Sure.
being watched. Todd, do you have some thoughts on this? Thank you, Chief.
Sorry, I work across the street. So I have worked up pricing for doing surveillance at Orchard Park before. I brought it to the council and there wasn't any appetite for that at the time. The numbers are still valid and they're certainly doable. So we wouldn't have to like budget for it or anything. I mean, we can probably just do it. I'm thinking it's in the, $4,000 or $5,000 range.
A month?
No,
Or just?
permanent, period.
Okay. That's
We
nothing.
already have wireless at the water tower, and so it'd be simple to get a connection over to the park, and then add add a bunch of cameras and a way to record it.
Well, I'm curious what even just the destruction at the bathrooms cost. Do you remember that? That's probably more than $4,000 or $5,000 just
Oh,
to
yeah.
repair that. And again, maybe it
Yeah.
wouldn't stop it.
And Jay
but-
Justin's here, he can speak to some of that. Is there stuff going on again?
Yes, I got tagged this weekend
Okay.
by Pastor Carey. Wanted to let me know that there was a lot of destruction going on at Orchard.
Good morning, Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. A couple thoughts here. One, we are, so on top of what Chief Hooper's doing, we've also been locking the restrooms every night and then unlocking them every morning with staff, which is a major drain on staff at Orchard. The one conversation I just want to bring back with the cameras is just the idea of equity. If we
Yes.
do it at Orchard Park, there's going to be an expectation at Avenue A Park. If we do it at Avenue A Park, there's going to be an expectation at Cary Park, at Bunty Park.
That would be my expectation.
It just gets more and more complicated, more and more costly. If that's a road we want to go down, I think it's justified. I think it helps. It won't eliminate it. I can guarantee it won't eliminate it. With Orchard Park, even if we gate it and have cameras, people can still walk in and do whatever they want to do. Maybe we'll get them on camera, maybe we won't. So it's not the silver bullet solution. I do think it helps, but I just want to make council aware that if we do it there, we just need to be prepared to start systematically doing that in all of our parks. I'm not against it. I think it helps, but I just want to, when that request comes to do Cary Park, which is a much larger
Yes.
adventure into this, it definitely the cost is going to add up. So.
We could do it in phases.
Correct.
And what do we have, 12 neighborhood parks?
As far as parks, it would require that without adding them up. Yeah, we're in that range. Rice Park, Cary Park, Bunty. Come our neighborhood parks. So yeah.
It'd be far more complicated at other parks.
Yeah.
Cary Park would be simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rice Park would be impossible at this point.
Yeah.
So, are very difficult. So that's why we want to, we want to be careful by saying, we'll do them all. But this would certainly, I think, help the people who, are possibly doing damage that don't want to be on camera.
Yeah. I just feel like just because we can't do it all or do something perfectly or it's not going to be the perfect solution doesn't mean we should throw our hands up and not try it if we think it would be somewhat effective and not that costly comparably for what we're spending on repairing all this damage.
Yeah, if there's support, we can get moving on getting Orchard Park kind of as a pilot. I guess we can treat it as a pilot, and then we can start prioritizing where else do we see vandalism, where is it cost prohibitive to do parks. Grandview's one I'm thinking of that we get a lot of damage there, but connectivity to Grandview is going to be really challenging, I assume, from our system.
Are you agreeable that the 43rd, the Orchard Park is where we should start?
Yeah, I think either there. Yeah, actually, that would be, if I had to rank them, as far as the amount of time we spend in graffiti and damage and those sorts of things. So
It's not just the vandalism. If there's other crimes being committed in the parks too, that should be part of the prioritization.
Yeah.
yeah, and, the location and the size of the park, it's where we have most of our problems. There's not a lot of Cary Park. We get a lot of traffic that goes through all hours of the night. Most of those are law enforcement going down to the county facility. So, but at Orchard Park, after hours, there's really no reason to be there or even be through there. So we do see a lot more incidents up there.
Shenanigans.
Yep.
Yeah. Thoughts from the council on moving forward with exploring that?
Well, I'm one for treating everybody the same, but we got to start somewhere. And I think if this is going to work, then we can look at doing the other parks. I'm hesitant just because I'm a council member and we treat everybody the same. So, or we try to work with people. But on this one, I think we need to start somewhere. So, $4,000 or $5,000 is a drop in the bucket for what damage we're taking. Now, how would the dispatch handle this? That's a lot of pictures that we put, right? That have one. How do we put that into? How do we pipe it into our dispatching system?
Well, Todd would be more on the IT side of that, but we wouldn't pipe into dispatch. We would pipe into the police department side in our command center, because we have, and you may not have been over there, but we have video screens that we're able to monitor, some cameras in the schools, different things like that. So we could have that video feed up 24 hours a day there. And that would also maybe give us some insight into the timing of when these things are happening, when people most frequent up there, those type of activities. I would also encourage us that if we're going to put the video surveillance up there, we need to put great big signs up that let people know that this park is being surveilled by video 24 hours a day, that type of things. That would be the deterrent that the mayor spoke of as well. I think that would be money well spent.
Is there any way to put in here? I mean, I'm just thinking. Is there any way to put the cameras in use for deer when deer comes around the path or something? When hunters use that. Could turn the cameras on when you have activities that run the cameras 24 hours.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of doing surveillance on children playing in a
Sure.
park.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily want to do surveillance, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
If we started having a bunch of problems with graffiti or artists or something doing that during the day, then we could deal with it then. But I would recommend that we only, kind of run a nighttime, when the park is closed kind of a system until we figured out that wasn't working. But I don't want to have a surveillance state. I don't want to know who's in the park when people are supposed to be in the park.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's absolutely doable. We already do that all over.
I would like to know what the second priority would be and then get budget numbers on a surveillance system for that. Because if we know what Orchard Park is going to be.
Yeah, I would agree with Mayor and you, Steve, that, we can always say no. if we don't have a problem somewhere, we don't have to do that. Again, in a $40 million general budget, I think that we could probably find some money to do this.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, without talking with staff and looking at numbers, Avenue A would be my number 2 spot.
I wonder if that business owner should send that camera back.
You got something there. There's a good thing right there. I just thought of. Maybe what would the cost? How hard would it be to put? I know I've got people tell me about Avenue A too. We spend a lot of money at Avenue A Park. How hard would it be to put some?
Straightforward.
Excuse me.
It's straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not difficult.
I don't know why we can't put some surveillance in Avenue A and Orchard Park.
And then we could maybe work up numbers for Cary, which is going to be a little bit more complex. I know there's a lot of different pockets.
Yeah, that one's not near straightforward, because
Yeah.
what all did you record? Where do you put them?
Were you having an issue there in Cary?
We do from time to time, yeah. Just the pure volume of things, but it varies from where it's at. So it's not like it's only a playground that causes problems. It's parking lots. It's the very far south end by the disc golf course. We get issues down there, so that one's a little bit more complex for sure.
If we're gonna do it, I would like to see us do it in Orchard and in Avenue A Park, because Avenue A Park, I see it's got graffiti, people sleeping on the benches.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
I was in Rice Park, just as a side note, there was a whole lot of people playing disc golf on the new disc golf course in Rice Park, so.
Yeah, that's been a great project. I was kind of holding off to do anything publicly about it until we have we're going to have an official probably kickoff tournament here. We're working with Hutchinson. But yeah, it's been a great project, 100% privately funded.
I understand.
Donor came to me and wanted to do it. I've been working with them, setting up contractors and those sorts of things, but they've been reimbursing the city for all of it. We have a few hours worth of labor into the whole project. So
That's
great
awesome.
project.
Todd, I got a question for you. These cameras, are they gonna be seeable or the people going?
Yes.
So will we have problem people smashing the cameras and, you know?
The
Of course we
cameras
might.
that I have in mind would be inexpensive enough that if somebody damaged the camera, we could just put another one up. But, you know, if we go with the big AI cameras and start doing fancy stuff, that might get a little more costly. But, you know, if you look out here, I mean, there's cameras out here, which they're there, but you don't, you see them once and you don't think about it anymore. But these wouldn't be the big cameras like you see on the front of the quick shop, but they're noticeable.
Okay.
And lots of signage. You know, that's the deterrent that we're looking for, because we really don't want to have to send people up there or trying to track them down or whatever. We just want them not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead
Yeah.
and signage up.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the conversation on that. Sorry we went down that rabbit hole. Over to you, Gary.
No problem. Just wanted to remind you all that on November 1st, we have a meeting scheduled, 6 o'clock in the evening. That's a council day, so it'll be kind of a longer day. But at 6 o'clock, Art Davis will be here to meet with you to review the applications for the new city manager, and there'll be an opportunity for you to kind of review those applications and select those that you want to consider for further consideration.
Great.
And then the next thing I have is I'd like to turn it over to Paul. He's got something he wants to go.
I'm just squeezing in on the city manager's time. Really, this is not as much for me as for title requirements. There's a number of documents the mayor needs to sign to close the transaction with Salt City Investments. And I just need a motion from the council to authorize the mayor to sign all closing documents for the transaction with Salt City Investments.
I'll make that motion to sign the documents for Salt City Investments on the close of that property.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on executive session time requirements?
I'll try 30 minutes.
Yes, well, why don't we go for 30 minutes, and hopefully we can get through it in that time period.
Okay, can I have a motion for executive session till 10:45?
I move to recess into executive session until 10:45.
And this is, okay, we have a motion and a second. This is for KSA 75-4319B3 regarding contract negotiations with the city's bargaining units. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes.
won't take but a few minutes, 20
Okay.
minutes. Fine.
11:10. Did that work, you guys?
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion to extend the executive session until 11:10 a.m.?
I'll second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Hyriste Carvalho.
Yes.
Crap.
I was gonna borrow a pen, but there's a note on there that says I can. I wonder.
I know.
Probably. You can borrow it, but you have to put it back.
We got cameras.
He says it funny, say it again.
Don't say it funny. It's Pyro State Carvalho.
See?
Oh, he pronounces the H, which
Okay.
is the only thing.
Oh, I know what you're meaning, down there at that meeting.
No, in Kansas City.
Yes,